so much for tuning in again to Walking Testimony. Today I have an amazing video ahead for you guys, and I'm joined by one of my close friends, Gianna. I'm gonna go ahead and let her introduce herself a little bit, and then we'll go right into the topic.
Hey guys, I'm Gianna. Today we're talking about sex.
Yeah, we're gonna be just addressing a lot of different things. We also had some questions sent to us on Facebook and throughout different social medias about things regarding sex, but more so in a Christian context. So we're not just gonna be telling you guys our just crazy stories. We're really gonna be addressing some things regarding sex and Christianity. So stay tuned, and in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe. So, you guys might be wondering why we're making this video in the first place. So Gianna came up with the idea, and she just proposed it to me and asked if I would help her do it, and I was excited to. So I think the reason I really was excited to do this was because I think in the Christian community, the only thing we hear about sex is don't have sex until you're married. And that's about it. We're not really given any guidance. And I mean, some women and some men, their story is that they were a virgin until they were married. But what about if that's not your story? What about if that's not the case for you? And that's the case for me because I'm not a virgin. And I think that a lot of times when we do have those mishaps and we kind of feel like we're outside the will of God, no one really tells us where to go forward in that. No one really tells us what God really intended or what he wanted or why he even said to wait until marriage to have sex. And we're hoping to address some of those things in here and just really make sure that if that is not your story where you're not a virgin and you're either engaged or you're dating or you're thinking about dating and you're wanting to wait and be celibate, to know that there should be no shame and there should be no guilt because God loves you regardless, and we're going to really talk more about that in this video.
Yeah, and also, growing up, I just never had anybody talk to me about any of these things from a Christian perspective. So I feel like I want to make that a conversation that we can have openly and not feel ashamed about anything. So, yeah, stay tuned for the video, and hopefully it helps you guys.
Yeah, so yeah. And I would say too, this is more so from a woman's perspective because again, we're young ladies here, and from our experiences and what we believe. And I'll be also taking a lot of just advice and a lot of biblical things from this book that I've been reading. It's called The Naked Truth About Sexuality. I'll put all the details about it in the description bar below, but I'm really going to be referring to this book a lot throughout the video because Havilah, Cunnigton, she's just amazing, and this book truly answers all questions that you could ever have, whether you're a believer or not. I think it's a really good book to really read and kind of get some more insight into about this conversation pretty much. So yeah, next up we're just going to talk to you guys more so about some misconceptions that people may have about sex and about being a Christian and about what happens when you do mess up. So the first misconception that we'll talk about is a misconception that sex is bad and wanting to have sex is wrong. That's not what the issue is. Wanting to have sex is a good thing. The desire to have sex is a good thing. I mean, God created it. And if we believe that God is good and all things he created is good, then we have to believe that sex is good as well. The issue is just having sex before marriage, and that's what's kind of what God doesn't want us to do. But just wanting to have the desire is not wrong at all. He created it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's supposed to bring you closer to your spouse. It binds you guys together, so it's amazing. And also, we wouldn't be here. Nobody would be here if it wasn't for that. So.
Because even God said, "Go and be fruitful." You can't really be fruitful without sex. But again, with every good thing that God creates, he also gives us parameters, and he always gives us guidelines about when to engage in them. Not to just be like, oh, I'm going to keep this good thing away from you. But no, he wants to protect you. And he had reason for saying to wait until marriage because there's a lot of issues that can arise when we engage in sex outside of marriage, especially for engaging with it with multiple partners. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So yeah, so that's our first misconception.
So the second misconception is that you lose a sense of value or a sense of worth after you've had sex. And that's just not true. The Bible is full of redemption. It says that in 2 Corinthians 5:17 says that this means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. So God even says we are a new creation. And so things that have happened before, once you bring them to God and ask for forgiveness and repent from them, it's done. You're a brand new. You're a born again virgin. And
yeah, and also your worth comes from God. Like who you are comes from God. No sin that you ever commit will just make you lose value to God. God's not just like, okay, you did this, I'm done with you, I don't have any use for you. That's just not how that works. Our righteousness and our worth doesn't come from our actions. It all comes from God, because he's already died for, he sent his son to already die for us. And our final misconception is that sex is only a body experience and that it only affects your body. That is a lie. If you have ever been in a relationship where you've involved sex, you know that it is more than just a body experience. Even the Bible tells us that we are not just human beings, but we are spiritual beings. So anything that you do affects your soul and your spirit, and sex is one of those things. It even also says that, it is the one sin that you commit against yourself. So when you're having sex and when you're giving a part of yourself to someone. You are constantly becoming one with someone, and that affects you. That affects your spirit, that affects your soul. And that's why sometimes when you add sex to a relationship outside of marriage, well, even within marriage, when you add sex to a relationship, you really start to complicate things, and you start seeing things differently. You start to find yourself being so connected to this person, not understanding like why, and it becomes harder to even leave a relationship that you're trying to leave if you hadn't added sex into the mix.
And even if you feel like an emotional connection is not there, your spirit is dying inside because you're sinning against God, and you're causing a gap between you and God because of your sin.
Yeah, and I mean, God designed us to be intimate and to become one with the person that we're with, but he designed that and with the intent that it was with one person. So when we're constantly doing that, we're creating soul ties. Like, I have created soul ties with people that I had no business creating soul ties with. That sometimes they're emotional soul ties. You can create emotional soul ties. You can even create sexual soul ties. So even in those instances, you have to guard your heart, and you have to understand that, like, you can't just say, it doesn't matter, I don't feel nothing, I'm not connected. No, you're fooling yourself and you're lying to yourself.
And it's sin, period. It's sin. So that in itself hurts our spirit, man.
Because again, we're God's. Like, we were made for God by God. So whatever you're doing, especially in this context, is going to affect all three parts of you: your soul, your spirit, and your body, like we said. So those are the three misconceptions. There are a lot more. There are a lot more lies out there about that. But just for the sake of time in this video, we just want to talk about the three main ones. So just know that no matter where you're at, whether you're a virgin, whether you're not, you're still loved. God still sees you just as good and just as perfect as the day before. That he saw that in us, and he sees purpose in us, and he wants to use us in his kingdom. He sent his son to die for us. Nothing you're gonna do is gonna change that fact. Nothing you're gonna do is change his love for you. So just know that.
So, we have this thing called Trinity points that we came up with, and pretty much these points are things to help you if you've decided that you want to start the road to celibacy, or you're struggling with this area and you don't know how to come out of it. You're like, God, what do I need to do to serve you in this way with my sexual life? Here are 3 points that we've found helpful to us, and we've done them, and we feel like God has really shown us his grace through them. And so the first point is to tell someone. Now, telling someone can seem very scary if you feel ashamed about what you've done. It can seem like, what the heck, why am I telling anybody? But the truth is, when you talk about it, it frees you from it. You feel like you don't have to hide it anymore. You can feel like just open to just talk about it and deal with it firsthand. For me, that was telling my parents. That seems scary and crazy to some people, but that's what really freed me and broke off some chains off of me feeling like I had shame and just all these things that I thought they would think I'd be less than, but it's just not true. And telling somebody really helped me see that. I know for Lise, like...
Yeah, and I would say when you're deciding to share that with someone, be very wise about who you're sharing that with. Definitely pray about it, because you don't want to share it with someone who's going to look at you like, what are you talking about? Sex is good. Why did God tell you not to do that? That doesn't make any sense. You want to tell someone who's going to understand and who's going to help you be accountable, and who's going to pray for you when you mess up, because you might mess up. That is just the truth, that you might mess up. So just be very wise in who you're telling, and don't just tell just anyone just to let it out. Like, you can do that, but it just may not always breed the fruit that you're wanting it to breed if you're wanting someone to support you and kind of lift you up in prayer with that.
Exactly. And the Bible even says in James 5:16, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. So confessing it really frees you and heals you in that way. So talk to somebody. Talk to us if you want to. Just
you can message us or anything.
Yeah, it really frees you, and it really just starts the process.
Yeah, but the main part in all of that is just make sure that that person's going to be able to pray with you. That person is, you know, on that path and on that journey with you.
Absolutely.
And is it going to judge you or make you feel guilt or shame if you do mess up along the way, if you have a mishap or something like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the second point is to stop. It's just basically, I wouldn't say that simple, but you really want to make the conscious decision to stop and repent about what you're doing, because at the end of the day, no matter how good it feels, no matter how many people are doing it, you're still going against the will of God. So you definitely want to make that conscious decision to say, hey God, like, I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know this is not the way that you want me to live, and I'm struggling with this, so I really want to make the conscious decision to stop doing this. And you can't stop or you can't change anything about your life, not even in this area, unless you first make that conscious decision to do it, and also seek help and seek ways to make sure you do that. And in all things, prayer. Like, you're gonna have to pray. This is a battle. You're battling against something that is in us, and a desire that is within us, and that's really hard, especially in the society that we live, where sex is everywhere. You cannot turn on a TV or commercial or anything without seeing that just thrown in your face, and the temptation left and right. So that's, I know it's going to be hard, but you just really want to pray for it, and also show yourself grace, especially for those moments where you might mess up, or those moments where you're just like, this is stupid, why am I doing this? This is too hard, like, God, why?
And sometimes what comes with stopping is cutting somebody off. And there's people who are tempting you. There's a certain person in your life who is the reason why you're sinning. Say, hey, okay, right now in my life, I can't continue to foster this relationship, and cut it off. It may not be easy, but I promise you, it'll be worth it. That was my story. I had to cut somebody off, and literally my decisions changed. You know what I'm saying? So really just think about who in your life right now needs to be, you know, snipped away. And you can love them from a distance. But just, you know, not the same way you have been before.
Yeah. The final point is, it's okay.
It's okay.
Like, let's say that again. Like, it's okay. It is okay that you have fallen. You know, like, God did not call us to be perfect. We're not perfect. We will never be perfect. So knowing that if you have made that mistake, that it's okay. If you're still making that mistake, and if you're struggling with it, it's okay. And when we say that it's okay, doesn't mean that, like, okay, it's okay that I'm still sinning, so I'm going to keep doing it. No. We're saying that it's okay that, like, we don't want you to feel shame or guilt. We don't want you to run from God because this is an area that you struggle with, but just knowing that, like, God is still saying, I'm still waiting for you. His arms are still so wide open, saying, I have redemption for you, my child. Please come back to me, and I will help you with this area in your life that you're struggling with, especially because God sees your heart. He sees our heart. If he sees that your heart is really desiring to change and is just really genuinely struggling with this, he's going to forgive you, and he's going to say, I'm going to work on you, and I'm still going to bless you, and I'm still going to walk with you in this. Not saying that there won't be consequences for your actions, but God always has redemption, and no matter what the consequences are, no matter what you deal with and you endure, he promises to always be there with you.
And there's no shame. Psalms 34:5 says, those who look to him for help will be radiant with joy. No shadow of shame will darken their faces. So just be encouraged. Like, it's okay. You're free. Just know that it will take some work depending on where you are, but God is going to help you through the way. That's it.
Snap, snap. See, just Bible is just poetry.
Seriously? Oh,
yes. Poetry. You know, just poetry. Before we go on to the question and answers part, I just want to say this, guys. We by no means are saying that we're perfect. I know for me, I'm not saying that like, I'm telling y'all to be celibate, I'm telling y'all this because I've arrived, I've made it, I'm chilling until I'm married. That's not the case. I have personally messed up so many times along the way. This is something that I struggle. This is an area in my life that I struggle with, especially because y'all, my heart and letting go and just how I am with people, that's really a difficult part of my life for me. And that is something that I'm constantly praying about, but I don't feel shame about it anymore because I know that God has redemption for me, and he's taking me such a mighty long way, especially in the way that I view sex and the way that I view myself and my sexuality and how I connect with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Same thing.
Yeah, so
we have not arrived anywhere. We're just trying to help you guys from our own experience.
Yeah, and we're definitely open, so if you want to comment about anything that we said, or if you want to shed some light about anything that we said, please feel free to do so. This is a conversation that we want to continue, and that we're wanting and hoping to start and spark something in you to either learn more about this or just really pray more about this, or maybe it's something you never thought about and you're just like, wow, I never thought about these points. I never really thought about any of this, and now you want to learn more.
Yeah.
And if you do, definitely, again, go get this book. It's like $14.99 on Amazon. I'll leave a link and all of that in the description bar below, like I said. Yeah. So let's get started with our question and answers. So, question number 1 that we got was, should I feel bad about wanting to have sex? So we kind of addressed this in the video already, and the simple answer to that is no, you shouldn't feel bad. So if you kind of missed that response, just kind of rewind back, a little refresher, and just kind of see more of our explanation for that one.
Yes. So our second question is, we're going to paraphrase some of these questions. If I think I'm going to marry my girlfriend, can I sleep with her? We don't have sex, but we do other things, pretty much what he's asking. And so the first thing that I noticed in that question is, if I know I'm going to marry my girlfriend. 1, you never know if you're going to marry somebody unless you marry them. Unless you guys are actually married, you will never be married. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first thing. No, you can't because you're not married. That's what the Bible says. Also, if you guys are doing other things that are not actual intercourse, but they are actual sexual acts, that's still considered sex. And you guys are still in sin with God. He's not happy that you guys are not having sex, so it's good because you're still doing other stuff. He's not proud of that. And anything that's sexual is sex. So just know that, and know that the Bible is very clear about no sexual immorality. You know, and that's considered anything that's sex outside of marriage.
And when it comes to what God wants us to do and his desires for us, there isn't a gray area. It's either black or white. And you have to really have that discernment and pray about it. And you also mentioned in your question that your girlfriend is a virgin and you're not. So again, you both are engaging in something that is going to hurt you in the long run. Especially if you never know that you guys may just not end up married. And not to say that's discourage you, but you just don't know. You just never know. And just because you think you are and your heart is there doesn't mean that God is going to give you a free pass to indulge in that, because he's telling you no and to wait for a reason. So the answer to that is no, you shouldn't be engaging in that, because you just don't know, and that's just opening up yourself for just more heartbreak than anything, and especially since you're not walking in the will of God. So I would definitely just say you guys need to talk about that and kind of start setting up some of those boundaries and understand what that really means for you. So the third question we got was, if God wants us to stay pure and pretty much stay a virgin before we're married, why does he allow us to get horny during our obedient walk with him? Now that right there is a really good question. That is also a question I've wondered, like, why didn't you just wait until I was married, Lord, and then on my honeymoon night just have my sex drive go into overdrive and it'll be great. But in the book, Havilah says something really, really powerful, and she pretty much answers this question. She says, did God just give it to us to torture us? And she says, he gave it to us that we would learn to steward and manage something powerful, valuable, and significant, because that's what sex is. Sex is powerful, valuable, and very, very significant. So yeah, it probably would have been a lot easier for him to just wait until we're married, but I think that there are some things that God wanted us to learn and experience, and learning how to steward our sexuality and our desires to have that that we couldn't have learned if he just gave it to us then.
We wouldn't have. It develops self-control, because even in marriage, you'll be tempted to just not,
like in marriage, there's going to be temptation even when you are married. So if you learn to handle that temptation outside of marriage, and you waited and whatever the case may be, or you became celibate, whatever that was for you, and then now that you're married, when you do face outside temptation, you'll be even stronger to resist against that than if you just never had to deal with it before, and then you just kind of whatever. So I think that would kind of be the way that we answer that question. Again, we didn't see anywhere in the Bible that says this is why God that sometimes the Bible doesn't tell us exactly how those things work or give us straightforward answer to those, but just know that he gave that to us for a purpose. And everything God does is for a reason and a purpose. And I know, and I'm faithful that if you ask him and that is something you pray with, he will reveal things to you, and he'll give you discernment and wisdom about things and about some of these questions. So yeah, just with any question that you have about sex, honestly take it to God, because he's faithful to answer any of them. So yeah.
So our fourth question is sleeping together, not sex, just sleep, inappropriate before marriage as a Christian. And so the Bible doesn't give us like a detailed, okay, so you don't sleep in the same bed, but you can do this, but you can't do that. But from my own experience, I just know that if you're attracted to the person and you really care about the person, when you're in the same bed together sleeping, you want to cuddle, you want to start touching, you want to start just being like romantic, and that leads to other things. And so the easiest answer for that is just like, it helps you in the long run if you just stay out of the bed before marriage, and it just makes it an easier process of being celibate. You won't be as tempted because you won't be like, right next to them in the bed, pretty much.
Yeah, and like Gianna said, the Bible doesn't say, okay, here's a line. Like, it doesn't explicitly put that for you. But again, you have to use your discernment. And you have to know what Havilah talks about in her book. She said your level of arousal. You have to know what gets you on it. So if sleeping in the same bed with her, you know it's just not a good idea because it's going to tempt you to do more, you don't need to be sleeping in the same bed with that person. Same thing, too. If you know you're someone that, if you start kissing someone, it's just going to go to the next level for you, then you don't need to be kissing someone. So it's really just you knowing yourself and then having that relationship with God so that you're growing and you're learning throughout that journey as well, and knowing what your level of arousal is and what you need or don't need to be doing. So question number 5 says, how can I be sexually liberated while maintaining a relationship with God? So with that question, I'm going to go ahead and assume that when you say sexually liberated, you mean feeling free to just have sex outside of marriage with whom you want, when you want to. And the main thing you said was while maintaining a relationship with God. It's going to be really hard for you to maintain a relationship with God when you're consciously, knowingly, you expressing your free will to do what you want to do when you want to do it. You are literally in complete disobedience with God and then telling him that I'm going to still maintain a relationship with you. That is just, I want to say difficult, probably not really going to happen, because if you are having and you wanting to have a relationship with God, you're going to have that conviction, you're going to have that that spirit telling you what you're doing is wrong, but you're pretty much saying, God, I'm going to go out here and do this one thing you told me I shouldn't do, and I know you're telling me not to do it, but I still want us to be close, and I still want you to do all this stuff for me. It doesn't work like that, because what you're doing is you're trying to have a relationship with God, and then you're constantly cheating and knowingly cheating with him, and it's no longer becoming something you're struggling with, it's becoming something that you're choosing and knowingly wanting to do. And that, it doesn't work like that.
He still loves you, but you're not building a relationship with him at all. You're just, it's like if I were to tell Lise, okay, can we still be friends, but I'm going to lie to you every day, and I'm going to hurt your feelings, and I'm going to just, it's like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. You know, God's going to love you, and he's going to still have grace for you and still have forgiveness for you, but you're just constantly like throwing an arrow at him and just piercing every single time when you're choosing to do something that he blatantly has said to you that he wants you to wait for your own protection. So sexual liberation, maintaining, because that's the word you said maintaining a relationship with God. Yeah, it doesn't go hand in hand with that at all.
Our 6th question says, once a couple gets married, do they have free range to discover any sexual exploits they wish? Is there a limit? So with that question, my personal belief is that if you both are respecting each other and are in unity with each other with whatever is going on, and you're not involving any other parties, I think that that's up to you guys. If you feel peace about whatever you guys decide, if it's like a fun thing that you guys want to try together, I personally feel like that's okay, as long as you're not involving other things with it, and you're just both okay or feel respected and feel loved doing whatever you're doing.
And I would say, for me, it's what you mean by sexual exploits.
Right.
If you mean sexual exploits in the sense of we're going to go swinging, or we're going to involve other parties, or we're going to watch porn together, or go to a strip club together. If that's what you mean by sexual exploit, the answer to that is no. Because God created sex and that intimacy to be between you and your husband, and to have his spirit involved in that. So you involving something that he already doesn't condone, and you involving something that is perverting his idea and his design for your sexuality and for that intimacy and that bond that you're building with your spouse, it's wrong. So you don't have free range to do that. You don't have free range to take something pure and to take something that God created to bind you and your spouse, and then add something that is perverting God's design and idea for sex into the mix and think that it's okay just because you're married. That's not what that means. So not that there's a limit, but it's just a no.
Yeah, and I would also like if you're married, pray about that and say, God, okay, I want to do this, but is this okay? And He'll give you peace about it if it is or not. He'll let you know.
Yeah, so. And ask yourself why. Why do you even want to engage in that? Like, why is you being one with your spouse and you exploring one another and learning how to be intimate with one another? Why is that not enough? Yeah. Why do you need to go and add all these extra things into it to, I don't know, whatever word you want to use to liven it up, whatever. Why is that? So really ask yourself that question and pray about that within your marriage. Yeah. And our final question says, when science says sex is healthy, especially if monogamous, why are Christians expected to wait until marriage to have sex? And then they also explained that before people would get married earlier during their teenage years, but now the generation is getting married later and later in life. So there are many reasons why people are getting married later and later on in life. One reason is that our life expectancy is a lot longer than it was back then. So, I mean, we can kind of delay marriage a little bit more. There's other reasons for that, and I can go more into detail that another time. But to answer your question, like, as far as what science says and what God tells us biblically and what He discerns to us, they're not always going to align. That's just the truth of it. If science is saying, hey, having sex monogamously, not married, is a great thing and it's good for your body and all that, of course, sex is good for you. Like, God created it that way. But He also said to wait until marriage to have it. So, honestly, to answer this question is, what are you going to believe when you're going to follow? Yeah. If you're a Christian, you should be following what God is telling you to do. So are you going to follow science or are you going to follow Christians? So Christians are told to stand out and to not be like everyone. We're set apart just because of what we believe and what God has told us about our identity and our purpose. So if that's the case and we're meant to stand out, that means we're not going to follow what science and the rest of the world says, because we're held to a higher standard. We're held to a completely different standard that at the end of the day is to glorify God. So science says one thing, that's real cute, but my God says something completely different. But He also says if I do mess up, that there's redemption, and there's love, and there's grace, and there's forgiveness for me. So I'm going to go with that route as a Christian.
Yeah, and also, like, even with science, like, they don't talk about the spiritual aspects. Like, science can talk about the physical, but the spiritual aspects, God is trying to protect us from. That's why He's trying to protect us spiritually.
Yes, that's good, especially because we're spiritual beings. Like, we're not just this flesh. Like, we're spiritual beings. Like, Christ died on the cross for us for so much more than just for us to come out here and say, well, science said it, so I'm going to do good. Because that's not going to be a good response in heaven. Like, why you do that? Well, science, Lord said. No. It doesn't work like that. So that is the end of our question and answers. I really, really hope that this video shed a lot of light to you guys. To really hope that it answered a lot of questions for y'all. If y'all have more questions, please, please, please don't feel like you can't put them in the comment section below. I will try to answer as many questions as I see or comments as I see. I know Gianna will love to go through that and answer some of those as well. And if we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know. We're not going to go, like, giving you some just crazy answer just to feel like, oh, we know all of this.
Yeah, and also, like, tell us if you think we're wrong. Like, if you feel like something is not, tell us. And, you know, it's a conversation. It's not just us preaching to you. It's a conversation.
Yeah, and if you have some biblical scripture about, like, things that you saw that could have helped with this video as well, share that, because we want to know. We want to learn, and we're still growing. Yes. I know for me, like, I'm in a relationship, and we're still growing, and we're still having those conversations. And our relationship is very different, but we're still, it's a conversation we have all the time, and it's things that I know I struggle about it more so than my boyfriend does. But again, it's a conversation, and I've made mistakes, and we all grow from them.
We all have, yes. So and thank you guys for your questions. We appreciate you guys participating with this, and just
so don't forget again to subscribe. Also, Gianna has a blog. I'm gonna go ahead and link the URL to her blog on there too, and mine. So make sure you subscribe and follow those too, because we're gonna have a lot more discussion about this, a lot more topics about this. And I have a surprise for you guys, because I'm gonna have another video similar to this, but from a guy's perspective. Ooh. So that's in the work, and I think that's gonna be just really, really amazing, just to have 3 guys with just completely different stories and backgrounds sharing their experiences and also talking about this from a male perspective. So I think that'd be really beneficial. So yeah, so again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm gonna keep saying this until every single one of you guys are subscribed. So have a blessed day, and just continue to live life in His glory and with all His purpose.
Yes. Okay.